Hey guys, it's Dude Chemistry back on the Food Chemistry podcast for another episode, and this is a very special episode. We often talk about flavor like sweet, salty, and umami. But have you noticed how the brain lights up the moment you bite into something perfectly smooth or perfectly crispy? Today, we aren't talking about taste but texture, the unsung hero of good food. And joining me is Chef Manoj Pandey, who knows how to turn texture into an emotion.
Hi guys, this is Chef Manoj Pandey, the executive chef, and I have experience of 15 years in across India. And today I'm joining Mahir on a food chemistry show. We'll be talking about the science of texture, crunch, and cream and chaos. Thank you, Mahir, for calling me on this show.
Thank you for joining me, chef. And the first question that comes to mind is that when you're designing a dish, do you think about texture constantly or does it just happen as a part of cooking?
So, Mahir, according to me, I think when I'm designing a dish or a menu, I look into the texture as a main part because it's play a major role while plating the any kind of food. So, if I'll talk about a simple dish as a broccoli, so when we are
Correct.
blanching a broccoli, so we take a raw broccoli and we cut into the flour, and then we blanch into a boiling water, and once it's blanched and we remove it from a water and put it in cold water, in ice water. Why we put it in ice water? Because it's stop further cooking and it's retain the texture and the color,
Okay.
and that's where you get the proper texture and color and the crunch in that broccoli. If you overcook, it'll become messy, and that's generally not a good a cooking technique actually. So that's how I look into it. Like similarly, like a carrot, if you are cooking any kind of puff also, so a puff also, when you're baking on a right temperature on a right time, so it's get a nice golden brown color on top and proper crunch. So whenever I'm cooking, generally I first thing I look at, it's a color and texture more
Correct.
than the a flavor, because I know that the chef who can get these things right perfectly, he can get the flavor also correct.
Absolutely right. As like our tongue and teeth, they aren't just flavor detectors, they are mechanosensors. And studies show that texture stimulates the brain. So without sugar or salt, also a crunch feels satisfying.
Absolutely correct.
So, chef, right now when you spoke about the cooking of broccoli and carrot, you mentioned a term called blanching. So, could you explain to me and the audience what blanching exactly means?
Yes, absolutely. So blanching is where anything which is boiled and immediately it's put it in the ice water. So that is called as a blanching, and as like a boiling anything, you are starting from the cold water like a egg. Egg you generally boil, you don't blanch it. And similarly, a poaching also there, where you are doing your egg poaching. So poached egg generally on a boiling water you put it, but you don't put it in ice water. So this is all a three different technical term for the kitchen: boiling, blanching, and poaching.
So, basically, blanching is like giving a shock to the food, like
Shock.
directly at 100 degrees Celsius.
Absolutely, on a boiling water you have to put the broccoli or carrot or a zucchini, and immediately you have to cool it down in ice water.
Okay, so that's a great technique to maintain the texture as well and the crunch as well. So I think this will be something very useful for people in the kitchens. And usually at home when we cook food, like if we cook broccoli or carrot or anything, it becomes brown by the end of cooking. But I think a simple hack is that we put it directly into cold water after we feel it's been cooked properly. So it will retain its properties and of course give a great texture.
Absolutely, and even it's retain the color also.
Okay. So moving on, if you had to pick, are you more of a crunch chef or are you more of a cream chef?
So I am a moreover a crunch chef rather than the cream chef.
Okay. So why exactly would you say that? Why are you a crunch chef? Why do you prefer crunchiness over creaminess?
Because I believe the texture is important as a flavor, and it satisfy your senses when you are having it. And being an Indian, definitely we have grown up eating all these crunchy things. So I believe that when I am cooking any food and I'm plating anything, so definitely I personally see that anything crunchy is there or not, rather than the creamy. Definitely cream is a part of a cooking and the plating element, but the crunch is also one of the thing which I personally see that the any Indians definitely prefer to have it along with their food and along with their meal. So if I'll talk about like a carrot, basically as I mentioned that the carrot blanching and then plating into the plate. So when you're having a bite of carrot along with your seared chicken breast, so definitely that a crunch of that carrot and the perfectly cooked and the texture of the carrot will it's open up your senses while having your chicken breast, soft chicken breast.
So, from a scientific standpoint, crunchiness relates to water activity or the amount of moisture inside a certain food content. So, when you have the perfect amount of moisture, you get the perfect crunch. And creaminess is more related to the even distribution of fats. But when you have something that is crunchy, the brain is immediately stimulated. But when you have something creamy, it takes a while inside your mouth. So that is why that has a certain richness. But I relate to you when you say that you are a crunch chef and you prefer crunchiness more because that directly stimulates the brain.
Absolutely, Mahir. You absolutely explained in a correct way, I think, for our audience. And I totally agree with you that the crunch is something which always stimulate your all the senses, and you enjoy eating crunch.
So as we're talking about crunchiness and creaminess, is there a dish you've made where texture has made all the difference, even more than the flavor? To relate to this, I can give an example like gelato feels richer than ice cream even though it has less fat as the creamy texture slows down the eating speed.
Yes, Mahir. So there is one dish which I can remember that is called herb crusted pan-seared fish. So that fish is basically a fish which is lightly marinated with lemon, salt, and a light yellow mustard sauce, and the panko crumb, which is infused with herbs and then garlic powder, onion powder, and all, and then that is coated over on top of a fish, and then it's pan seared on the pan, and when it comes out from the pan and goes to the plate, and when you're having that fish, so mainly a first texture comes in your mind, in your mouth is the crunch texture, which is a flavored a breadcrumb which is coated on top of the fish, and the second texture comes in your mouth is a creamy and a nice fish texture. So why I have combined this flavor, because the fish does not have any kind of a flavor, wherein if you add any kind of a texture or the flavor, it's automatically adopt that. And I think that this is the best combination where it can answer your question that a texture made a difference than the flavor.
So in this herb crusted pan seed fish, the outer layer of it is like very crunchy, but the inner layer is soft if I'm not wrong.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah, so how do you make sure while cooking that only the outer layer remains crusty and the inner layer remains soft?
So you have to choose a right fish. As I said that it can be any kind of fish, but it should be a fillet fish. A Chilean sea bass can be one of that, or it can be any kind of a sole fish or a red snapper. That kind of a fish generally when you cook, you're pan searing that, so it's getting cooked from outer side, and as much as it's cooked, so the outer layer will get more crispier, and then inside the fish will get cooked and it will be remain soft, the fish will remain soft.
So moving on, do you ever intentionally add contrast like hot and cold or soft and crunchy to a dish just to surprise people? Like cold tightens sensitivity and hot expands aroma release. So hot and cold together give a multi-dimensional feel.
Absolutely correct, Mahir. Generally, whenever I am planning any kind of menu, if it is a menu for a coffee shop, if it is a menu for a banquet wedding, so generally this contrast I'll be definitely incorporating in the menu. Like hot and cold, definitely this a warm brownie and cold ice cream goes very well, and many of the guests enjoys that. Like in a banquet, gulab jamun and vanilla ice cream goes very well, and definitely North Indian people loves it. And in a la carte menu, definitely cream brulee, it's one of the example which we can take. It's a creaminess from the inside, and then the burnt sugar on top. That's a brulee of a sugar which is a crust on top. So whenever you are having that cream brulee, so the first texture you feel, that's the crunchy texture of the sugar and the creamy texture from the cream. And there is one more dish is coming in my mind. It's the seafood bhel, which is there in my menu. It's a seafood which is a pan seared in a butter, and then mixed with onion, tomatoes, and then save, and then little bit of a savory and sweet a sauce into it. So it's a little bit warm, a seafood and the crunch of onion, tomatoes, and the save. It's like it's open up your all the senses when you're having that, and you enjoy having this. So as I relate this same.
So next time you bite into a flaky samosa or a creamy risotto, remember, your mouth isn't just tasting, it's feeling the science, it's feeling the crunch, and it's feeling the cream. Big thanks to Chef Manoj Pandey for joining in today and reminding us that sometimes chemistry speaks through texture. Stay tuned for the next episode that will arrive shortly.